After coordinated US and Israeli strikes, Iran believed it had found its response. It launched a wave of drone and missile attacks targeting US military bases across the Middle East. But the US refused to stand down. Iran fired missiles, prompting a swift and forceful US retaliation, delivering devastating blows in return. Recently, US B-2 pilots executed astonishing operations over Iran, signaling that Tehran recognizes it is losing this conflict. The backdrop to this is a harsh barrage of American and Israeli strikes. Reports indicate the U.S. conducted approximately 900 strikes during the first 12 hours of its campaign, while Israel bombed Iran nearly 1,200 times within 24 hours. Facing such overwhelming force, Iran understood a counterattack was necessary. However, its attempts to strike US aircraft proved futile. The planes were simply too fast, too coordinated, and far beyond the weakened capabilities of Iran's air defenses. Instead, Iran focused on targets that are immobile. US bases scattered around the Middle East. Deploying missiles and drones, Iran transformed what had been a country-centric conflict into a broader regional war. A report from France, 24, dated February 28, provides a detailed account of the sites Iran attacked or attempted to attack. In Bahrain, home to the U.S. Navy's Fifth Fleet and Naval Forces Central Command, Iran aimed at the service center for the Fifth Fleet. Observers noted gray smoke rising near the base, which includes a deep-water port capable of accommodating US aircraft carriers. In Iraq, where US forces remained stationed within the autonomous Kurdish region, explosions were detected near the U.S. consulate in Erbil. Kurdish security forces reported successful interceptions of Iranian drones and missiles over the city. Further attacks targeted Jordan's Muwafaq Salti Air Base, where the U.S. operates dozens of military aircraft. Early reports confirmed 2 ballistic missiles were intercepted, resulting in only material damage. The strikes continued at other strategic locations. In Kuwait, which hosts several U.S. bases and depots storing equipment and supplies, Iranian missiles targeted Ali al-Salam Air Base. While most missiles were intercepted, Italy, which also has air personnel stationed there, reported damage to a critical runway. Explosions were likewise recorded near Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, a key location for the U.S. Central Command. CENTCOM. Forward elements. Additionally, Iran seemed to target Doha, Qatar's capital. In the United Arab Emirates, which hosts Al Dhafra Air Base, the home of the U.S. 380th Air Expeditionary Wing, witnesses reported seeing smoke rising following a series of explosions. 2 rounds of Iranian missiles were intercepted there. However, debris from the initial barrage purportedly caused casualties. As these events unfolded, the U.S. prepared a powerful counterstrike determined to avenge the Iranian missile and drone assaults on its regional bases. What happened next reshaped the battlefield and demonstrated the extent of US military reach in this escalating conflict. In a devastating series of events in Syria, an Iranian missile tragically killed 4 civilians, despite reports that the United States is in the process of withdrawing its troops from the region. This missile strike was part of a massive and desperate Iranian attempt to project power, following a coordinated offensive by the U.S. and Israel that struck over 1,000 targets on Iranian soil in a single day. The repercussions for the United States were severe. According to Scommerce, 3 U.S. service members lost their lives in what is now officially termed Operation Epic Fury. Additionally, 5 others sustained serious injuries. President Donald Trump had forewarned of the possibility of casualties, acknowledging the harsh realities that often accompany warfare. Seeking retribution, the U.S. unleashed one of its most formidable aerial assets, the B-2 Spirit bomber. On March 1st, the Warzone website reported that these stealth bombers had joined the air campaign against Iran. Departing from their base in Whiteman, Missouri, The B-2s penetrated Iranian airspace in the early hours of March 1st and launched a devastating attack. The primary targets were Iran's missile caves, deeply embedded facilities carved into mountains, which serve as missile storage sites. Some of these caves possess the capability to launch ballistic missiles via specially designed fissures, posing a dual threat. The U.S. strategy was straightforward. Destroying these caves would not only eliminate missile stockpiles, but also cripple Iran's ability to launch them. William said distance shouldn't tree. Able cream a beachy. U.S. stretch a straighten. Iran places immense symbolic and strategic value on its missile caves. Nearly a year earlier, in late March 2025, the Iranian regime released an 85-second propaganda video showcasing these caves along with some of their more advanced missiles and rockets. Intended as a display of strength, the video inadvertently revealed critical vulnerabilities. A key issue exposed was that missiles were stored openly inside the caves without robust blast doors or protective measures, which could contain an explosion. This meant that a well-placed strike could trigger a catastrophic chain reaction, causing the caves to collapse. According to the Warzone report from March 2025, all it would take is the right match to light the fuse, and the missile caves would come crumbling down. The U.S. had precisely that match in the form of the B-2 Spirit. This stealth bomber not only carries bunker-busting munitions capable of igniting such chain reactions, but is also an elusive and highly effective platform for penetrating enemy airspace undetected. Moreover, the missile caves possess another vulnerability. They don't need to be completely destroyed to be rendered ineffective. By targeting the entrances and the missile launch fissures, the U.S. can effectively seal off these facilities, significantly diminishing Iran's ability to utilize its extensive missile stockpiles. In summary, the deployment of the B-2 Spirit bomber in Operation Epic Fury exemplifies a calculated and powerful response by the U.S. military. Its precision and capability were ideally suited to neutralize Iran's missile infrastructure, fulfilling the objective of crippling both the ammunition storage and launch capabilities within these fortified underground caves. Following that, the U.S. implemented continuous surveillance and repeated strikes aimed at dismantling any openings Iran attempted to establish. This approach positioned the U.S. to launch attacks elsewhere across the country, while simultaneously minimizing Iran's chances for retaliation. With the strategy firmly in place, and the arrival of the B-2 bombers, the U.S. merely had to initiate the action. But before we delve into that pivotal moment, it's important to understand the unique capabilities the B-2 Spirit brings to the battlefield, attributes no other U.S. aircraft can match in the context of Iran. Tyler Rogueway from 2VZ provides some essential insights in his exposé, asserting that the B-2 enables direct attacks on Iranian targets that no other platform is equipped to execute. One B-2 bomber alone has the capacity to carry up to 80 GDAM bombs, each weighing 500 pounds. When deployed in substantial numbers, this payload delivers sufficient firepower to effectively seal off Iran's missile caves, thereby preventing the battered regime from orchestrating another strike, comparable to its previous attacks on US bases throughout the Middle East. Rogueway vividly describes how a single pass by the B-2 can obliterate entire airfield infrastructures. Furthermore, incorporating munitions such as massive ordnance penetrators, MOPs, enhances its bunker-busting prowess, confirming the B-2 as the ideal instrument for targeting Iran's missile caves and underground missile facilities, should the U.S. decide to do so. Additional commentary from Max Afterburner highlights the core strengths of the B-2, its ability to strike unexpectedly and hit highly sensitive sites with overwhelming force, delivering complete shock and awe without warning. Essentially, The B-2 couples substantial destructive power with stealth technology that enables it to infiltrate enemy airspace, execute precision strikes, and exit before Iran even realizes it's under attack. Reports suggest that the U.S. deployed 4 to 6 B-2 bombers over Iran, each capable of carrying 2 of the massive 30,000-pound MOPs. These weapons can penetrate more than 200 feet underground and strike targets at speeds exceeding 625 miles per hour. The B-2 thus forms the spearhead of the next phase in America's aerial offensive. Shortly, we'll expose exactly what the U.S. accomplished during its revenge strike in detail, what Iran has lost so far in Operation Epic Fury. Before we move further, if these comprehensive insights interest you, be sure to subscribe to The Military Show, where we break down such developments every week. The B-2 crews that took off from Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri understood they faced a daunting 32-hour round-trip mission. Though the UK initially denied forward basing rights, a situation that may now be evolving, as you'll discover by staying with us. The bombers, nonetheless, had to undertake thousands of miles of flight, deliver their ordnance, and return, all in one grueling sortie. To compensate for the lack of forward bases, the U.S. deployed KC-135, Stratotanker aircraft for aerial refueling, ensuring the B-2s could remain airborne for as long as necessary to complete their mission. While it's true the B-2 can be armed with 500-pound JDAMs and MOPs capable of penetrating underground facilities, these were not the weapons chosen for use on March 1st. Remember what we told you about. Earlier in the video, we explored the Iranian missile caves and identified their critical weakness. The key to neutralizing these caves is striking their entrances, exits, and fissures. Once those critical access points are destroyed, the missile caves become useless. The United States was aware of this vulnerability, so it's believed they loaded their B-2 stealth bombers with a specialized type of JAM, Joint Direct Attack Munition. COVZ speculated that this was the Blue 109 warhead paired with the GBO-31 JAM, a combination that produces a 2,000-pound bunker buster capable of obliterating Iran's missile caves, or at the very least, destroying the missile launch apertures and tunnel entrances leading into those caves. It appears Tuv's speculation was spot on. After the B-2 bombing runs, U.S. or Central Command, CENTCOM, revealed precisely what the United States employed in those strikes. On March 1st, CENTCOM released a statement confirming that U.S. B-2 stealth bombers armed with 2,000-pound bombs targeted Iran's fortified ballistic missile facilities. Their message was clear: no nation should ever doubt America's resolve. This announcement was accompanied by a dramatic video showing B-2s in flight, reinforcing the message and underscoring the scale of the operation. The explicit mention of 2,000-pound bombs strongly suggests the use of the Blue 109 warhead, validating Tuv's earlier assumptions. Now, evidence of the damage inflicted by the B-2 strikes is starting to emerge. Satellite images are being circulated, revealing the aftermath of the assault on Iran's missile caves. Brady Afric shared a compelling series of photos on X, which document the devastation at Iran's Tabor North missile base. The collision scenes display precisely the type of collapsed tunnel entrances that experts previously identified as sufficient to disable many missile bases like these. Newsweek further reports that the U.S. appears to have also disabled a radar system at Iran's Zahedan Air Base. However, it remains unclear whether the B-2s executed that strike, or if it was part of the more than 2,000 strikes conducted by U.S. and Israeli forces during the initial wave of attacks against Iran. Additionally, the outlet indicates that Iran's drone and cruise missile storage bunkers in Qatar have been destroyed. This coordinated effort illustrates a systematic dismantling of the primary threat Iran poses to the United States. Iran launched missile attacks against U.S. bases, but in response, the U.S. and its B-2 bombers have effectively neutralized much of that missile threat. But the implications go even further. With Iran's ballistic missile capabilities diminished, the U.S. can now deploy its carrier-based assets more aggressively. These ballistic missiles previously posed a significant danger to the aircraft carriers stationed in the Persian Gulf. With that threat largely eliminated, those carriers can position themselves closer to Iran's territory. This not only improves their defensive posture but significantly accelerates the tempo of U.S. strikes. According to Afterburner, it's likely that F-22 stealth fighters were instrumental in preparing the way for the B-2 bombers, probably by eliminating enemy air defenses and establishing secure aerial corridors for the stealth bombers to operate effectively. Now, with Iran's missile caves collapsed and their defenses weakened, carrier-based assets, such as F-18s launched from the USS Abraham Lincoln, are expected to commence rapid, successive airstrikes, potentially firing every 30 minutes. This relentless offensive aims to systematically dismantle Iran's remaining critical military infrastructure. Israel is fully committed to this conflict and is positioned to gain significantly from America's efforts to neutralize missile threats. Following recent airstrikes, we see the deployment of 200 jets, including advanced F-35s and specially outfitted Israeli electronic warfare aircraft. Additionally, both Israeli F-15s and US F-15 fighters are contributing to an initiative known as Lucas, a one-way attack drone that serves as a sophisticated upgrade over Iran's own Shahid 136 drone. If Iran believed their troubles ended after the B-2 bomber missions, they are gravely mistaken. Much more action is on the horizon, and we'll revisit this shortly. But before diving deeper, let's take a moment to summarize Iran's current position. It's important to clarify that Iran has not entirely lost the capacity to launch missiles against the US, Israel, or other targets. The exact extent of destruction caused by America's B-2 bombers during the latest bombing runs remains somewhat uncertain, requiring further intelligence to paint a clearer picture of how debilitated Iran's missile infrastructure truly is. Nonetheless, what is clear is that Iran's missile threat is being systematically eroded amid the regime's weakening grip. Missiles constitute the core of Iran's offensive capability against the United States. Reports from the New York Times indicate Iran maintains a stockpile exceeding 3,000 missiles, with some estimates suggesting ambitions to expand that arsenal to as many as 8,000 by the end of 2027. However, the recent operations involving US B-2 bombers have forced Iran to slow its missile development plans significantly. Iran is to produce dozens of missiles each month, according to the same report. But every successful strike by US and Israeli forces chips away at this production capacity. Coupled with a dwindling number of launch sites forcing Iran to expend missiles on ongoing conflicts, their stockpiles are depleting faster than they can be replenished. Some of Iran's missiles are notably advanced and capable of inflicting serious damage on US interests across the Middle East. The Foundation for Defense of Democracies identifies key heavy hitters like the Sagil II, boasting a range of approximately 2,000 kilometers, 1,240 miles, and the Khorram Shah, which flies between 2,000 and 3,000 kilometers, 1,240 to 1,864 miles. These formidable missiles have been prioritized targets during the B-2 bombers' precision strikes aimed at crippling Iran's long-range missile threat. Evidence suggests these efforts have been effective. Israeli officials report that Operation Epic Fury, working in tandem with Israel's Operation Roaring Lion, has successfully neutralized about half of Iran's missile capability. This follows the earlier airstrikes conducted jointly by the US and Israel in June 25. Together, these operations have destroyed approximately 200 ballistic missile launchers, with dozens more rendered inoperable, according to official statements. With every subsequent strike that the US undertakes, it's likely we will see those stealthy B-2 bombers return to the skies before long. Iran's missile capabilities are steadily collapsing, a process mirrored by the deteriorating stability of its regime itself. Preliminary data currently circulating suggests the trend is intensifying, marking a critical turning point in this ongoing conflict. Al Jazeera's live tracker of the ongoing war between Iran, the U.S., and Israel reports that at least 555 people have been killed across Iran so far. Among the casualties is the country's most critical figure when it comes to prompting regime change, Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei himself. After about a day of intense speculation regarding his fate, amidst the massive air strikes devastating Iran, Al Jazeera confirmed on February 28th that Iranian state television announced Khamenei's death and declared a 40-day mourning period nationwide. Khamenei did not even survive long enough during the conflict he initiated to witness America's B-2 stealth bombers obliterate Iran's missile caves. His death leaves Iran facing an immediate and profound challenge, deciding who will lead the nation at a time when bombs and missiles continue to rain down. According to Afterburner, a three-member interim leadership council has been formed to select Khamenei's successor. However, this council faces a daunting dilemma as American strikes relentlessly chip away at the nation's entire regime structure. For each potential leader considered, there might well be a bomb or missile heading their way, threatening to eliminate them before they can take charge. Despite the government's call for mourning, many Iranians are openly celebrating. One such individual, Masoud Ghadarat Abadi, an engineer who emigrated to the U.S. at 27 to escape Khamenei's regime, expressed his feelings to CNBC. "Khamenei is dead. This is the best day of my life. This is a glorious day for Iran. I believe his death could mark the beginning of a new chapter in our nation's history. In the long run, I hope this moment will prove transformative." Yet, the death of Khamenei does not guarantee an automatic regime change in Iran. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRC, remains operational, though steadily weakened as us, and Israeli missiles and bombs strike deeper into Iranian territory every day. Adding to the challenges faced by the faltering regime, another country is poised to join the fight. Earlier reports revealed that the United Kingdom initially refused to allow the U.S. to use its Middle Eastern bases for B-2 bombing runs. That stance has now shifted. On March 1st, UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak announced that the United States would be permitted to utilize UK bases for future strikes against Iran's missile sites. While the UK will not be contributing its own aircraft directly to combat, it is opening up facilities such as RAF Fairford in Gloucestershire, as well as Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean for American operations. This development is a significant strategic advantage for the U.S., reducing the risk of depending heavily on aerial refueling tankers for B-2 deployments. Moreover, it allows B-2 pilots more flexibility and time to precisely target designated sites, avoiding grueling 32-hour-long bombing missions. Looking ahead, former President Trump has indicated that Iran possesses some potential off-ramps if it chooses to recognize the severity of the punishment endured. In an interview with Axios, the U.S. leader stated, "I can go long and take over the whole thing, or end it in two, or..." The statement hints at either prolonged military engagement or a swift resolution, though the specific conditions for de-escalation remain unclear. As the conflict intensifies and leadership uncertainty looms, Iran stands at a crossroads with far-reaching consequences for its future and regional stability. Imagine a scenario where the U.S. gives Iran a firm deadline. Just 3 days to halt and dismantle its nuclear weapons ambitions. The message is clear: comply now, or face repeated assaults on Iran's missile infrastructure in the years to come. So the critical question remains, will Iran choose this off-ramp, ending its pursuit of nuclear weapons? If not, the recent strike by B-2 bombers could be just the beginning of a series of operations targeting Iran's missile capabilities. When these relentless air strikes are combined with the overwhelming presence of America's carrier strike groups and the support of Israel's forces, the massive air power deployed might ultimately dismantle Iran's already vulnerable regime. Speaking of the U.S. carrier force, there's been ongoing debate about whether aircraft carriers have become obsolete. Yet, recent events suggest otherwise. The U.S. Navy continues to rely on these massive vessels as a cornerstone of its power projection. It's a fascinating topic, and we delve deeper into it in an upcoming video that evaluates how aircraft carriers fare against some of the most advanced military threats facing the world today. If you're interested in learning more, be sure to watch that video. Don't forget to subscribe to The Military Show, where we provide comprehensive coverage and analysis of the evolving situation in Iran and beyond. As always, thank you for tuning in and staying informed with us.